Hello, this is Alex, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a simple game inside of the Koji platform. So we're going to start by finding the Create React app with Koji. That is the template that we want to use today. There are a lot of different templates, do a lot of different things, but this is just a basic starter one. If you've used React before, you probably used Create React app. This is the same as that, but with a couple extra things to make it easier for Koji. So we're going to use this template and name it something. A simple game, and then we're going to create. And this is going to take a second to spin up and create a server for us. And while that's happening, I will tell you about what we're going to make today. So we're making a simple game that's just a box that goes to a random place on the screen and then has a countdown. And then if you click it before the countdown runs out, then it'll move. And if you aren't able to click it before the countdown runs out, then you lose the game. Then we're going to have a score that tallies every time you click, you get a point. All right, and here is our app, and it's going to start up the server for us, and then we should be able to see it in the preview in just a second. If we refresh this, there we are, and this is our basic starting point. So to begin, let's get rid of all of our starting code and start to replace it with our own code. So we're going to go inside of front end and then to source and components and find game.js. And there's a lot of stuff in here that we don't need. So let's get rid of all of this icon, content, and link, which is this stuff in the sample window right here, this crab that's spinning around in the text. We're going to delete this. And then we are going to also delete all of the styled components that are available just above this, because we don't need that anymore, as well as this commented out version, which is the original Create React app. So now we have just a container that is empty. So if we save that, we can see that the screen is just blank. So we have a few customizable elements in our app, and Koji allows us to do some configuration inside of the app. So we're going to change this around to work for our game example before we do anything else. So if we go from the visual editor to the code editor, we can see that there are a few different customization options that we can put inside of the application. Link color is not really going to be used for this because we don't have a link. So let's change that to box color because we do have a color for the box. So our box color will stay the same as the link color for now, and then we can change it in the visual editor right here. This will change to box color. And then this will also change to box color, the name of the field. And it is still type color because it's still a color. If we go back to the visual editor, we can see that this is now named box color, and we can change it to whatever we want using this visual editor. Now that we have this configuration option done, we can go to, we aren't going to need images in this game, although if you want to later extend it, you can put an image as the box. But for right now, we're not going to be doing that. So we can go to strings. We're not really going to be needing strings either, so we can actually change this to set game settings, because we are going to need some game settings. So this actual file is in the .koji directory. We can rename the strings to settings. And this will hold the game settings for our simple game. And now that this is settings, we can go to the code, which is right here. And the settings that we want for this game is a box size and a box timer, which is the amount of seconds before the game ends, before you click the box. And then we can, these are numbers, so let's set these in here. I'm going to put box timer to 5 and box size to 50. And then we can describe these in our fields to make them customizable. Box size, which the name is just a nice way of putting it, box size. And then our description would be the size of the box in pixels, which for right now we're going to set to 50, but this could be any number that you want. And we're going to do the same thing for box timer. Name And this is also going to have a description. And this is just simple JSON. If you want to add any more settings, you do it in the same way as we did right here. You would just add some extra things if you want to make this even more customizable. We have a description for box timer, which is the seconds before the game ends. That works. Let's save that file and then go back to the visual editor, and then we can see our description in here. We can see our name and the customized options that we have. So now that we have the settings all squared away, we can go back to components game.js and we can start writing some code in here. So you can see that we already have this styled component, which has all of the settings for the container, and we're going to keep that because it will work for us very well. We already have background color and color, which is just the color for the text. And this formatting is using the themed context using styled components. So this will automatically bring in the settings that we have above into our application so we can customize it on the fly. And we can try that out by going to colors. And if we change the background color to something that's more blue, right here, it will automatically update on our preview window. So let's continue building our game. We need a box. So let's make a styled component for the box. And our box needs to have a width, which is the width that we set in our settings. Oh, let me make sure I get these curly braces right. So we pass in the theme, and the theme has settings. Oh, something that I forgot to do that's very important. You go back to code. This is called string still in here, so we need to change this. This configuration file to settings. All right, let's select all those and change those to settings, and name has a capital letter in it, so let's change that. Save, and now our settings will update as the name settings. That's important to do. Now we're back to game.js, and we're going to finish our box. So it has a width that is theme.settings.boxSize, and that is in pixels. And then our height is also the same as that. Wonderful. And then this has a color, which is going to be the background color. And then that is in theme.colors.boxColor. And then that will import the color that we just put in inside of the configuration options. So if we render a box inside of the container, we can see it show up on our preview window. And then there it is right there. And we can change around the configuration options to make the box color a bit more viewable. Like, let's make it red. How about orange? Perfect. And then save that. There's our box. So beyond that, we also want our box to have a number inside of it. So let's make that inside of our element. Let's try that out. Let's hard code it to 5 real quick just to see what that looks like. And we need a font size on that actually. So let's also set that to box size so it'll scale up with the size that we want, because right now it's small and it's not really fitting into the box. So if we have a font size and set that to the same as we did before, which is theme settings box size, and don't forget the pixels at the end. And that looks perfect. Cool, we have the 5 in there. So now we need to add some properties in our state to update, to change around, to make this actually a game. So let's add a constructor into our code here that's going to pass in the props. And then React wants us to do a super props and set the initial state. So if we take a second to think about what this game is going to have, our state, we want an equal sign there. Perfect. Our initial state is going to have the timer, which we're going to start at 0, and we're also going to have an X position and a Y position that we give to the box. And then we also have a, let's say, game state, which is going to be running, and then we're going to have it be over when the game is over, and that's going to tell us whether or not the game is happening. Awesome. Now that we have that, let's tell the box where to go based on the X and Y position. And also, we can very easily right now put in the timer inside of the box. And that is going to be this .state.timer. And now this is going to show 0, and that's going to update as the state updates. So if we go back to our box where it's rendered inside of the component, then we can have an X, which is the state at X, and Y, which is the state at Y. There we go. But right now this doesn't do anything because we haven't told it what to do. So if we go back to box, and then we make it actually move based on that. So if we have an absolute positioning, absolute, and then we have a left and a top, which are going to be our X and our Y. And styled components loves having a bunch of parentheses and curly braces everywhere. But basically, we're just passing in a prop as a function and then using that prop inside of our styled component. And we do that in that way. And then we do the same for Y. And don't forget the pixels on this too, or else CSS will get mad at us. So now we're in the top left corner, and let's make sure this works by going over into the initial state and changing this number to, let's say, 100. And that should move the box over to the side, which is exactly what we want. Wonderful. All right, so now we need to add some dynamic movement of this game, which is counting down the timer. So to do that, we're going to have a on component mount, which is going to be component did mount, which is a React function of right when the game starts and everything's rendered, it's going to run this function. And when everything starts, we're going to set up our game. So we're going to set the initial timer, which is a set state of timer to this .context, which is the React context API we have here, pipes in the configuration settings just the same as we just did for the styled components. But now it's inside of our React application as well. So if we do settings and then need to remember what that setting is called. So if we go back to settings, we can check the name, which is box timer. And then we go back to our game.js, and it is box timer. So that will give us the data from the configuration, which is the 5 that we put into box timer. And let's make sure that works. There we go. All right, perfect. So now we want to make this countdown. So we're going to use a set interval inside of this component did mount. And that is going to take a function. And we want to update this every 1,000 milliseconds. That's our timeout. And then every 1,000 milliseconds, we want to make the timer 1 second smaller. And we are going to pass in an old state because we are modifying the state. And timer is equal to old state dot timer minus 1. So that will make the timer 1 less every second. And you can see that happening here. But after 0, it will continue counting down, which is not what we want. So we can put in old state dot timer is not equal or is greater than 0. And then it will only count down when it is above 0. Let's make sure that works. and that's perfect. So beyond that, we want to end the game if that actually ever turns to 0. So we can put another if statement in this interval, that if the state of the timer is ever 0, then we want to end the game. And then we can do that right now by setting the state to game state, I'll say done. Perfect. And that doesn't actually do anything right now, but we'll fix that later. So now we want to make this move around when we click it, right? So we can do that by an onClick event in the box. And then we can call this.moveBox, which is just going to move the box to a new place. And then we can make that function right here. And so what does moveBox need to do? It needs to change the x and y to something random, and it needs to increment our score. Oh, we forgot about a score. Let's put that in now to our initial state and set that equal to 0. So this is going to have a new x, which is equal to a random number. And for right now, to simplify things, we're going to make it just between 0 and 300. But if you want to have a more advanced setup, you can get the width and the height of the screen to make a move anywhere on the screen. So new y is also going to be math.random times 300. So that will give us a number between 0 and 300. To set the new x and y to, and our new score is going to be our old score plus 1. Then we're going to set the state for that to update all of these values. So x is going to be new x, y is going to be new y, and score is going to be new score. Perfect. So now if you click the box, it'll move around, and we aren't displaying the score currently, so you don't know what your score is. And we also forgot to reset the timer, didn't we? So let's add that in as well. We're going to set the state to the original timer state. So we can take the timer and set that equal to the whatever is stored in the context, which is settings dot box timer. Perfect. Now it's going to count down, and when we click it, it's going to start again at 5. Perfect. And, oh, it's falling off the screen there. We're going to change that to 200 on the Y so it doesn't fly out of our screen for right now. And while we're at it, let's display the score. So if we add another styled component in here for displaying the score, let's just call this text. And we don't need anything here for now. Let's just use this text field be underneath box to display our score. And let's tell everyone what this is. It's not just a random number, it is a score. And always remember to close your tags. And let's see what that does. We have our score is equal to 0 right here, and then the box is bouncing around, and it will continue to count up. So we are almost done here, but if this counts to 0, nothing will happen. The game will just end, and I can just keep playing. So we need a game over state, and we're going to do that in the render function, because we already are saying when the game is over, we're just not doing anything about it. So inside the render state, we can check if the state of the game state is done, is what I called it. Then we can return something else. So let's do the same container, because that's where our background color is coming from. But now let's have a text field that says game over, and then tells us what our final score is. And then we're going to use this .state.score and close our text field. And that should make our game finished. Let's try it out. 4. And this counts down, and game over. And it gets rid of the box and shows us our final score. So now that we have a fully functioning game, we can go play around with it in our configuration options. Let's try changing the text color to some random red, background color to, let's say, purple, and our box color to white. Along with our game settings that we have now, let's make a really big box. Let's say 150 pixels, but let's not give them very much time to finish the game. 2 seconds. So let's try that out. So now it is a hard to read game with a very slow timer. And I like how that looks. Let's change the color of the text a bit more so people can actually read it. Perfect. And now that we have something that we really like, that works very well, we're going to deploy it. So to deploy the project, we have this right here. Everything is already set up for us. We just have to pick a domain. I'm going to call this box game. And then we are going to click deploy now. Oh, we already have a box game. Let's just call this box game 2. And deploy that. So this is going to do everything that everyone's so terrified in DevOps about. It's going to compile the container. It's going to set up an EC2 instance on Amazon AWS. It's going to do all of those fun steps. And if you don't know what I'm talking about right here, you don't need to know because Koji handles all of that for you. And there it goes. All right, we have a fancy sound and everything. Box Game 2 is completely done and deployed, so let's play it. Now it works in the full screen, and we can click around this box, and it has a game over state. So that is how to make a simple game in Koji. I hope you guys had fun making it, and thank you.